As part of Freeport's Downtown Design Week, Freeport Historical Society is offering a look back at the history of downtown through photographs from the last century. Some of the most prominent features of downtown Freeport in the early 20th century were our electric streetcars, introduced in 1902. Alongside horse-drawn carriages and sleighs, pedestrians, bicycles, and eventually early automobiles, electric streetcars carried residents, factory workers, and tourists the length of Freeport from Yarmouth to South Freeport to downtown to Brunswick. Looking south from the town square, we can see streetcars traversed an unpaved main street with gravel footpaths for sidewalks. Amid the mature trees lining the street, you can see glimpses of many grand houses along Main Street, as well as the Knights of Pythias Lodge that today houses the Under Armour outlet. While sleighs, like this one, heading down Bow Street from Main Street, glided over the snow, trolleys and eventually automobiles required the snow to be plowed. Here, in addition to the plowed snow, we can see the sign for Freeport's first movie theater, the small luncheonette that would take on many names over the years, and one of the many gas stations that sprung up along Main Street to support the rise of the automobile. And in the background, the massive shoe factory complex that dominated Freeport's economy for most of the 20th century. Behind the shoe factories were the trains, carrying in the coal that powered the factories as well as the electric streetcars, and carrying out the finished goods to market. The railroad was crucial to the development of downtown Freeport. Fires at the town square have repeatedly transformed downtown. This photo from 1909 shows the smoldering ruins of the Clark Hotel at the corner of Bow Street and Main Street. The brick Davis block that replaced it remains relatively intact today, despite another fire in 1946 and the 1981 fire in that building that launched the transformation of Freeport into the retail outlet destination it has become over the last 40 years. This postcard, looking south along Main Street to the town square, shows the newly built brick Davis block, as well as the grand house and barn that stood at what is now the entrance to Freeport Village Station. This image, probably from the 1910s, shows the trolley tracks running through a still unpaved Main Street shared with horse-drawn wagon and two early automobiles. This photograph from the 1940s shows a similar southward view. The now paved Main Street is dominated by cars, with the Texaco star now showing just in front of the large house at the bend in the street. This photo from the 1960s shows many of the same commercial buildings that framed the town square since the beginning of the century, housing local businesses that also feature national brands like Coca-Cola and Rexall. The Davis block in the 1980s holds the local variety store, known as the Paper Store, the local pharmacy, and a local family restaurant. This 1950s Independence Day parade shows the lush, stately elms that once provided a full summer canopy across Main Street. This 1980s parade shows houses still on Main Street on either side of First Parish Church. The 1970s were not a hopeful time in Freeport. Over a dozen shoe factories closed within 4 years. Facing the end of the town's economic base, it's telling that amid balloons and marching bands at this parade, there is not a single smile. As Freeport closed out the 20th century, the transformation from factory town to retail destination was fully underway. These aerial photos from the mid-1990s show its beginnings. Looking from the lower left up, The old train depot has been replaced by new shops along the railroad tracks. The largest parts of the shoe factory complex have been removed, but Eastland Shoe is continuing to make shoes in the long white building and pack them into the trailer truck you see here. Polo Ralph Lauren has replaced the Texaco station on Main Street, but the mobile station across the street has not yet been replaced by retail. LL Bean's parking is just a few rows, still surrounded by blocks of residential neighborhood that would soon be removed. Apartment buildings built by E.B. Mallett for his factory workers still stand in the foreground here, while Mallett's office building to the right is the last element standing of the factory, today replaced by Freeport Village Station. Large retail buildings for the Gap and Timberland have already replaced housing on Main Street in this image. Over the next 20 years, many more residential buildings shown here would be removed to expand parking. We hope this look back at the many ways downtown has changed over the last century inspires you to imagine new possibilities for the future of downtown Freeport, its businesses, residences, energy, and transportation. For more on the history of Freeport, we invite you to visit freeporthistoricalsociety.org.